Welcome back, CSC230, to part 6 of our ex7 Jumbotron, and in this episode we're going to be focusing on our navigation and buttons a little bit, making sure these hover and look like navigation. We're not going to necessarily make them look like buttons, but we're going to make them change when you hover over them. We could even give them a bold weight if we want. We can make them light. We're going to make a dark color background, and again, I'm going to make sure that I have my ex7 Jumbotron layout. That's the link from my Warren under Unit 8. And remember, you might even have to scroll down in bookmarks and go past web design resources. I don't know why it doesn't keep it in a simple order, but it's here. It's the sample layout. So I'll have that out in a different tab. And I'm going to make this dark gray. We'll make this white. And we'll make these so we hover over and they change a color. And we could even make these bold. So that's what we're going to do to this. So let's go back to our CSS. That's all going to be under CSS. And remember, we're focusing on these kind of internal areas here. So it's going to be in nav. And what I'll do first is background color. I had a dark gray. It's just dark gray, the name. But if I kind of hover over here, I could, and notice it's weird. If you just hover and then it brings this up. So I'm going to kind of move around here, and I'm looking at the color, I guess this thing up here. I'm kind of going with a darker gray, and I'll just go in there and see what it looks like. And it's changing it to RGB, but let's just go here and see what it looks like, and let's refresh it. And that looks good. That's a pretty nice dark gray. Now these we have to change to white. So let's do that. We already have a company name, and I'll go here and just put color. Remember, you don't do font color, and I'll just start typing white, and white should come up, and that's all you need. And that's good. If you want to make that bigger, fine, but that's good for now. That's all I want to do. Now these things have to be white as well. Now we could have put everything white in here. We could have put color white. I think everything inside there could have been white, but let's just do it to the line items. Let's make these white. So I'm going to make these white, and temporarily it'll look nice. So if you want to do that and refresh it, those will show up white. Except we want to give them hover effects so that they look different. And where this is, if you're wondering, well, how do you know this? You're just telling me this in a video. If you go to CSS, and where you'll see these things, they're called pseudo classes. You know, you might look buttons and navigations and things like that, and you'll see some of that in here. You'll see some of that where they're actually doing that and using hover and all that. But if you go to pseudo classes, that's where pseudo classes will actually style an element when here it says, when a mouse moves over it. So those are pseudo classes. And usually these are the main ones here. And I think we talked about them before. A link, visited link, a hover, a active. And there's where they're using color. So you can hover, you can have it visited, but they have to be links. Now, they're not links right now, but they will be because they don't do anything. You can't click on a line item or a list item. So what we have to do is make those hyperlinked. Now what we could do just temporarily, we'll go up into our nav in here. Now remember these things here they are. Now we're going to keep them line items, but if we want to actually link them, we could do a space. And remember, because if you do tab and it has a word there, it's a problem. So I'll move back, I'll put a space and I'll do tab. Let me do that again. Let me put a space there first. Let me just do a tab. And then it should do that ref. And then basically I'm going to hyperlink these navigation things here, you know, like home. So let me get rid of that. And they're all going to go inside the LIs. So you see what's happening here. There's LIs and then they're linked inside there. Now what do you put in for href? Where are we linking to? Well, we're not linking anywhere yet. We just want it to look nice. We just want it to have the effect because we don't have any pages to link to. But we don't want to get errors when we click on it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put a pound sign in there. And that almost works like a placeholder for this. So we're going to do the same thing for all of these. So instead of doing that over, now that we did one, we can basically hyperlink all of these. And I'll just paste these here, and I'll paste this here. They'll all have this kind of dummy link. It's kind of like a placeholder. And then make sure you have the closing A tag, and they're all going inside the list items. So they're all going inside here. So now that I did that, if I go here, it took away the color. That's why I was saying I was doing color prematurely. Because now link is actually kind of taking over what's happening there. But now we could use these pseudo classes. And we could take away the underline. Remember, that's decoration. That's called text decoration, which I don't know if they show here, but we did that in the past. But we can start using these pseudo classes here. So let's start doing that. now that we have these, now that they're anchor elements. They're no longer just list items, they're anchor elements. So let's go back to our CSS, and we have these here. Now, remember, we can just specify nav menu A to do that. So I'm going to go inside here, and the reason I wouldn't just do A is because there could be links all over the page. I want to make sure I'm only targeting links within this area, so that's why I'm going to target the parent. Nav menu, and then it's going to be a link, because that's kind of its just resting state. And that's what I'm targeting. And let's just look at these, make sure I'm doing it right. A link, and then I'm going to give it a color. So the color I'm going to give it is white. And even if I want to do this, I'm going to do font weight bold. If I want to make them bold, I'll do that. So, and that should apply to all of them. So if I do it to link first, that should apply. I shouldn't have to do that every time. So let's go in here. So let's go in here, refresh it. Now that works. Now if we want to take the underline away, we can do text decoration none, but we should just be able to put in none. Text decoration none. That took away the line. Now we don't have any hover state, but if you want to do it like orange or something, I'm just going to highlight this whole thing. And you should always do hover after the link. I'm going to do hover. And you don't have to do this again. So it should inherit everything else. The only thing that's changing is going to be the color. So you shouldn't have to put bold and text decoration again, unless it changes, unless you want to put a line underneath. So I'm going to go here, and I'll just backspace and look for an orange. I'll type in orange, see how that works. Orange, see, and then go from there. Now again, if I wanted to put the underline to show up, I could put that in. I'd have to look. I don't remember exactly how to put the underline, the text decoration back, unless I just put text decoration underline. I just want to show you that you could put it back. Decoration, I'll just put text decoration. I'll see if I can put the underline back, and if I can't, I'll just put it. I'll just leave it out for now because I don't really want it. I don't know if there's underline. Oh, there is underline. See, that really helps out. I don't have to look up anything. So if I wanted it back, I could refresh this, and you see it's putting a line when I hover over it. That looks pretty cool. Maybe you want that. Maybe you don't. I don't know. The line really doesn't help, but I just wanted to show you that you could adjust the line as you want it. So I'll take this out. I don't want it, but I like the orange color. I think that looks okay. That looks pretty good. Now it's still doing that. I didn't refresh it. Now that looks good. That's what I want. That's good. Perfect. And when I hold down on it, let's see. That's not what I wanted. I don't know what I did there. I just did something. Since I'm having this weird issue suddenly popped up, let's put visited. And maybe that's okay. Maybe we do need this. I'm going to put visited and make sure it's the same thing. So if you have that problem, which I did there, and I didn't think I had to do this, but let's do this. Let's put visited, just so it doesn't turn purple like that. And we'll put visited and make sure it's white. Now we shouldn't, unless something's changing, we shouldn't do this. So let's put this in here and see what happens. That should fix that little problem I'm having there. And there, that fixes it. So I guess we should make sure to do that. So we're hovering over, it's turning orange. When we hold down, we don't have I don't think we need an active state because sometimes it turns red, but it doesn't look like I need an active state right now. If you do, just make sure it just stays the same color. And you could leave an active state of the same color, but we shouldn't really need an active state right here, so we should be okay. But visited, I guess we do. So maybe it's good that happened, because you might have had that issue and said, well, it's turning blue and I don't know what's going on. So we have the A link, we have the A visited, and we have the A hover. So that's covering everything right now. We shouldn't have to worry about A active when you hold down on it. But that's keeping it white when you visit the link. So that's what we want. So that looks good. So that's what we want there. And what we're going to deal with next is buttons. So we could go back to W3 Schools here, and where you're going to see buttons is under Advanced. They have buttons here, and these make things pretty easy. They even have transitions, what are part of the buttons. But if you go to buttons, and you can just go here and look at this. You don't have to memorize all this stuff. They just have a lot of properties here. They have border radius, which makes it round. You can make round buttons. And you could just say, oh, border radius, 8 pixels. Maybe you want round buttons like that. Now, again, these are buttons. These are not links that we created. So we can style these buttons. We can style these. They're already buttons. These were not buttons. So that's why we're going to CSS buttons here. And there's a bunch of stuff here. You could see border radius, background color, all this kind of stuff. Border, you could put a border color, a border solid, all this kind of stuff on here you can do. And they even have, hover. So there's button hover, all that kind of stuff. And that's all we're going to do. I don't think we have to worry about visited on here right now. They're not links right now, but we may have to deal with that when we deal with links. So we'll see what happens when we do that. But we're just going to make them look nice for now. So we're even going to use rounded corners. So let's just, first of all, let's make a nice rounded looking button that's orange. Okay, so border radius, we have to give it a color. Here's color button borders, hoverable buttons, all this kind of stuff. They have ones like that. Here's a hover that's going to change. We can change the color, all that, but let's just make it look nice first, then we'll worry about the hover. Now, first of all, we want to target the right button. And I don't think we gave our buttons classes. So let's just go here, and this was in the banner area, and we had button. Now let's give it a class. Button class equals, we'll call it welcome button. Welcome-BTN. BTN is always used kind of as an abbreviation for button. And maybe you want to put it first so that it identifies it as a button, and then we know it's the welcome button. And then we could have button column or something like that. So we'll give it a class of button welcome, and then we'll kind of style that. Now it is a button, so anything that all the buttons get, we can apply to them. And actually what I'll do, instead of putting it here after the button, let's put it in here because this is the area that it's in. So we can put it in here with all the nav stuff. And we'll put button dash welcome, because that's the class name we're targeting. Make sure we put our dot there. And we'll give it a property, we'll give it a background color, and we'll give it an orange because we used orange for the other stuff. We'll see what that looks like. We'll do border radius, border dash radius, and we'll use 8 pix. How do I know 8 pix? Because I looked at this and 8 pix looked pretty good as far as using these things. I like that one. And it's going to be a bigger button here. And you could put padding inside here too. We didn't use any padding or anything yet. So if we need to put a little more space in there inside the button, we can do that. Well, let's just look at it first and see what happens. We could even do transition. Now, transition won't affect it until we have a hover. So let's just look at it right now. So let's just look at our button here. Okay, now we don't have any padding in there. We want space inside there. So let's do that. Let's put padding inside there, and you could put it on different sides or just put it all around. I'll put 1M, see what that looks like. For now, that might be too much. You could always use decimals of M's. Let's see what this looks like. That looks okay. If you wanted a white border, you could put that on. If you wanted the text bigger, font size may have to be bigger on that. Lots of things you might have to do here to that particular button. Font size, and I'll just put 150%. That may be too big, but let's just see. And you may do color white. I'm not sure what we're going to do next. That's way too big. So we don't need font size, maybe 20. See how that looks. Still a little big. Let's try 10. All right, that's not too bad. It still seems a little big. Maybe even the padding's a little more now. Maybe don't need 1, maybe try 0.7 and see what that looks like. All right, that looks a little better. That's fine for now. Now we don't have any hover effect, anything. We can do a hover effect where it kind of changes color or it becomes a darker orange and maybe the color comes white. So let's see what happens there. Let's hoverable buttons. So it's going to be whatever our thing is with hover. So we could change the background color, we could change the color, anything like that. Let's just try to do that with this button. I'm just going to copy this. And this is going to be button welcome, except we're going to put the colon hover. We're going to put that pseudo state of hover. And the background color, I'm going to hover over this and maybe make it a dark orange. I'll go a little up here in there. Maybe make it a very dark orange. Something like that. That almost looks brown, but we'll see how that looks. And then we could even do color and make it white. Make the text turn white. We could try that. Now, I don't think we should need any of this stuff. And let me just comment it out just to make sure before I delete it. But I don't think we should need any of that. I think we just have to have what's changing. And what's changing is the color of the text and that. Now remember, the color of the text is coming from, well, it's default. We didn't give any color to the text. So it's black just by default. So we didn't give it any color. So now it's going to change white when we hover over it. And we could also try this transition. which is going to make it kind of look nicer. Transition duration. Remember that. Transition duration, and we'll use that. Whatever. 0.4 seconds. We'll try that. See how that looks. And it doesn't look great. I don't know if I want a border. I don't know if I really like that right now. I would prefer it with maybe an orange border or something, and maybe it turning white or something like that. I don't know. I don't really like that, but at least we can see how it changes. So we can tweak it a little bit more. And you know, even if you want less padding on here, I would probably even want a little bit less padding. So I might go up here to padding, but at least we know we don't need this, unless that's going to change at all. So I think we're okay. We can get rid of this stuff. We don't have to repeat that for the hover state. But padding, I'm going to take that down to 6. Now we have a border color. Now let's look and see about border color, because they talk about buttons with borders. Oh, border none. Here's one. We have border none. So if you don't want a border on there, you could put border none. So I don't like the border on there, so I'm going to put border none on this one and just put none, because I don't like that black border. There, it looks a little better. I like that a little better. I could leave it white both times, or you could flop it around. Let's see what it looks like with white. I'll put color white. And again, we're just experimenting here. You can try something else if you want. I'll put white, refresh it. Maybe that looks better. How does that look? That's better. I don't know if I like the brownish color. Maybe it just needs to be a little darker orange. I think I'll go here for the hover and maybe just make it just a little darker and not so brownish. It's kind of hard looking at this thing here. So that looks a little darker, and it can be subtle, so it's not a big deal. So let's try it out. Refresh it. That's a little better. So I like that. And now whatever we learned from that, we can apply to these. So if you remember what these things looked like, they kind of looked like that, and then we hovered over and they turned gray. So they actually had kind of no fill in them, so we can give them a white color, and then they can have in the hover state, they could turn gray. So what we just did with that, let's see if you can do that. Look at your CSS buttons, and we know everything we need here. Remember, there's border, and if we need a border color, let's just look at the one that has border color, just so you know how to do that. Rounded buttons, colored buttons. Let's look at these things here. Border property. So border works just like other borders. You use a border thickness, use a border weight, which solid, you would use solid, and then use a color. So when you want to add a border property. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you want to do this on your own, and then I'll come back in the next video and we'll kind of fix this. But from what you know about doing this, try to do this on your own. We're going to actually try to make it look like this. So it looks like there's a gray border. It looks like 1 or 1.5. You could even make it 2 pixels. Try it out. See what looks good. It's going to have a background color white. It's going to have a gray border. And then when you hover, it's going to turn gray on the inside. So it needs a little bit of padding, maybe 0.4 em or something like that. And everything else should be the same as this. So see if you can do that. And I'll do that in the next video. But see if you could do it now in this part 6 video. So I think I'm going to stop here with at least our button working and this stuff working up here. And I'll work on this in between, and I'll just show you what I did. I won't have to go through everything. And then we'll start working a little bit more with tweaking our paragraphs, our headings, starting to make this really take shape and getting a background picture in here in the next video. So this is part 6, and hopefully you should have your button working. Try to get these working on your own so they look a little nicer, so they look like this one. So you can hover over them. They start white with an outline or a border. They get a background color when you hover over them. So we'll focus on that next, and then we'll kind of focus on making this look nice, and then we'll tweak our columns a little bit and some of the other details in the next video. So we'll see you in part 7.